Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Welner. I'm with the National Tile Contractors Association. Thank you for joining us once again this afternoon. This week, we have been talking about safety. Mark, what are some of the things we've already talked about this week?
Oh, Matt, we've hit all the topics. We started out on Monday talking about OSHA and OSHA Airborne Respirable Silica programs and how important that is. We have talked about just recently lightweight materials and how they save our backs and bodies and hands. What other things, Matt?
What were all those power tools we had out here?
You know, when we cut things like tile or cement board or backer board or grind concrete, these things have silica in them. And silica, when it's cut and ground, it can create a cloud of dust with little tiny shards in it. And these shards, when we breathe them, lodge into our lungs and never get out. So, Matt, that's where we needed correct tools with manufactured, engineered devices to suck that dust up so that we don't breathe it.
So when we talked about engineered control devices, what we were talking about was having the right tool for the right job, right? We have a task in front of us, and sometimes just being tile people, we're adapting and we're maybe using something that it shouldn't be used for, a tool that is really not designed to do what we need it to do, but we're improvising. And so we all know there's these profiles that are out here, right?
That's right.
And we're familiar with Bullnose, but you guys all know Bullnose is getting harder and harder to find in the tile industry, right? Not as many tile manufacturers are adding in Bullnose. And part of the reason is because the metal profiles have become so popular. And there's different colors, there's different sizes, there's thousands of choices from multiple manufacturers. And so you can get color that matches the tile, you can get the color that matches the grout, you can get textured, you can get plastic, you can get aluminum, you can get stainless, you can get all these different options. So we know, Mark, tile people are using them. How many of you are cutting profiles at least once a week? And because of all the hands, when we were planning coverings this year, we said everyone's cutting profiles. Are they doing it safely? Because we're tile people, we know how to cut tile. I have all the tools available to me to cut tile, but what about cutting metal or cutting other materials, right? We might be using a tool that's designed for cutting tile, and maybe it's not the best option. How do we do this safely? That's the whole point of this afternoon's talk, isn't it?
That's right, Matt.
So, Mark, when you were installing tile for a living, you were a tile contractor
Sure
one
was,
time.
absolutely.
Did you ever install metal profiles?
Sure did.
What did you use to cut the profile to fit maybe your niche or your curb or an edge metal? What did you use?
I'll show you, we have one right here. I used this, kind of old school, right? This is what I used, it's what I had, and can we cut one now?
Sure.
All right.
Now, to me, I didn't have one of those, and when I see that, it feels like that's gonna take an awful long time. Do you feel like that's maybe slow?
You know, I don't know if it's slow, but it does, you know, I don't have this attached, but if you can help me hold that.
I'll hold it.
And what I was looking for when I was cutting this, I was looking for a couple of things, Matt. I was looking for accuracy. So sometimes when I'm trying to be accurate, when I'm doing a tile job, time doesn't matter to me.
So accuracy, and unless you put a finger directly under that blade, it's pretty safe.
That's right.
Right?
Now that didn't take me very long at all, did it?
Now I'm looking at this where you cut, and it's pretty accurate. It's actually, pretty straight too, but I see a couple little burrs. How do you solve that problem?
That's why we have a little set of files.
Okay.
So one thing to use, I've got a flat file here. I can run on the back side, trim that up just a little bit. I can take a look at my edge, and if I have to, just very lightly bring that off, and I'm ready to go.
So the power tool version of that might look like that angle grinder over there, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Now, that's the right tool for the job because it has the right blade on it, doesn't it? It's a metal blade.
Yes.
It's a metal blade. So we're using a blade designed to cut aluminum and metal. Will you, after you put your hearing protection on for me?
Sure.
Will you cut us a piece? This piece right here, can you cut it maybe 2 feet?
2 feet?
2 feet long? Yeah, let's do that.
Now, how would you like me to do that? Just by grinding right into the wood here or off the wood? Oh, sorry. Thank you.
So what I'm gonna do while you're busy doing that, I'm gonna grab this clamp, because now we got a power tool and that blade's spinning at a couple thousand RPMs. If something was to jam up, we don't want this to go flying back there to Mark and Matt sitting behind that table. We don't want to get any metal in their eye or a profile in their shoulder or something like that. So go ahead and cut me a piece, and we're gonna just be gentle when we get close to that wood table. There we go.
Had a little bit of kickback there,
A little bit. I can see where that might get dangerous if we're not holding on to it.
I wasn't paying attention. I was jammed up here.
So same thing. We've got these little burrs on the end. We could take a file. Somebody showed me a trick a few years ago, and we got to talk about corners, right? That's part of what we would use Bullnose for. And another way that we could do a corner, we could take just a pair of tin snips, and I like showing some different ways like the hacksaw and simple hand tools, because we don't have little shards of metal flying, and it's just might be the safest way to do this. So what I'm doing with the tin snips is I'm just getting rid of the bulk of this material, and I've kind of got that cut on a 45-degree angle. And then I'm gonna just take a file and I'm gonna hollow out. I know it's gonna be hard for everyone to see, but I'm gonna hollow this out on the back side. And I'm just working it up and down, up and down, up and down. And now I've got a nice big open area in the back part that you'll never see. Mark, would you go ahead and pass me that tile, that 12 by 24 tile right there? So I could take this metal now and put it under something square, like a tile, and I could slowly, I'm gonna hold it with my left hand, and I'm gonna slowly bend it around this corner. And if we do it nice and slow, we'll get to 90 degrees, but then when we release the pressure, it kind of bounces back a little bit. So you have to flex it just a little bit more. And now I have a 90 degree. And that will fit on an outside corner. So there's an option. Now some different profiles, that is just a jolly and L-shaped profile. So that will fit good there, but we want certain textures and certain colors. They may stretch that metal or that aluminum just a little bit. So sometimes that works great. Mark, do we have any corners? Because manufacturers are now making corner pieces that fit these metal profiles.
Matt, I've got a pocket full of corners here.
I'm gonna give that to you, and can you show everybody how that would work on an outside corner? And I'm gonna cut you another piece for that while you're doing that.
So if you're not familiar with these outside corners, they come in all sorts of colors to match all the different colors Matt talked about of metal and plastic and the different sizes. A lot of these are measured in metric terms, or they do translate to other terms. Today, we're working with an 80 millimeter or a 5/16. So I've got those right up here in this pocket. And we'll take these right off. So what I've got here is an outside corner, pop it through the bag, and with this little piece of metal, if you haven't seen these before, they just slide right in. They've got one leg, slips in. Then Matt's got me my second piece, and this side, it doesn't have a leg. And what I can do is just butt that up to it right there, and I've got a beautiful outside corner. I need to be accurate when I place this, and I might use a little bit of tape. Or Matt, do you know what the manufacturer recommends to do here? Do they recommend a little bit of tape to hold that in place while it cures?
I don't think that the manufacturer has a recommendation on temporary holding it, but I know from personal experience, some maybe some blue or green tape wrapped around that corner until some thin set dries. That's always helped me out.
So I don't know if you guys can see that well enough, but that does a real nice job right there. So the easy part about this is that all we had to do was make a couple of straight cuts. A little bit safer. It gets a little bit dicier, Matt, when you have to do a 45 to get a 90-degree corner, right?
It does. And so one of the safety aspects about the outside corner, if you leave that outside corner with a customer and they lose their balance and you've got two pieces of metal cut on an angle, man, that could cut somebody's arm open if they slipped. And Mark, part of my business, it involved renovating a lot of bathrooms for some older people.
Sure.
And we were trying to give them a nice big handicap shower, maybe some grab bars and things like that. And right. I just hate to think of somebody slipping and catching an arm or a shoulder or something like that on an outside corner. So that's where I think these manufacturer corners are perfect. There's no sharp edges involved. We make sure we file any little burrs off as well.
I agree.
Mark, while you get set up over there, we're going to install that outside corner. I'm going to come back to you in a second, but we know that people are using miter saws. Anybody want to raise their hand to using a miter saw to cut profiles, right? And I'll be honest, I've done it because the truth is some of my bathrooms were pretty big. And I might have to the next day put in some shoe molding or something like that as well. So I've already got a miter saw on the job site. But when you think about that spinning blade, that blade has zero forgiveness to it. And I've seen some horror stories and some horror pictures on Facebook of profiles shooting 20 feet away and going through windows and things like that, right? You got a story, I can tell by the way you're shaking your head. Okay, so you guys know what I'm talking about. So we brought a miter saw, but I'll be honest, this is a brand new miter saw that's made 4 or 5 cuts because we wanted to make sure we're showing you guys a good, safe option. And so this is not a wood blade. This is made for cutting aluminums and hard plastics and things like that. And the other feature that this saw has is I can set my profile in this against my fence right here. And where guys run into problems is they're gonna cut and they just go down really fast. That spinning blade grabs the metal and then it just twists the metal all to pieces. So one, we're gonna cut slow, but also this miter saw has a little clamp on it as well. And so I'm gonna make sure that we clamp this down nice and tight and then go slow so that when I make that cut, nothing goes flying. Pretty easy, and when I look at this, it's got a little bit of a sharp edge, but it has a lot less burrs on it, a little less file work. So the extra time that it takes in clamping it down, I'm making up for it by not having to use the file as much. Mark, tell us what you got going on over here. I see you've got some thin set spread, and there's kind of 2 ways. If you're doing a knee wall, kind of like what we have, there's 2 different ways that we could install a profile, isn't there, Mark?
There is. We can install the leg up or the leg down, or to the left or to the right, however you want to view that, Matt.
Okay, so let's do this side over here. And in this instance, we're setting it flat on top of the wall on this side. But if we were going to install a piece of tile over here with a profile, it would sit on top like this, and now our tile will fit this way. So 2 different ways that we can put them in, and that's something that you would want to consider when you're doing your layout. A little bit different in how you would do that layout. So I'm going to give those corners back to you, and let's see if we can put a couple tiles right there. Now, do we just set that metal down in the thin set and then set tile directly on top of it?
No, Matt, we want to make sure that our metal profile is fully embedded in the adhesive, or the thin set in this case, the dry set, thin set mortar. I'm not going to go ahead and do that. Well, you know what? Maybe we will. I'll put that leg in there, and unfortunately, I forgot a margin trowel, but that's okay. So I'm going to use this little guy, and I'm going to press that down into the mortar that I've troweled. Now I'm embedding that, right? When I go to, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and set this to, just so you guys can see right over here. I'm going to embed this right here. Okay. Do we have a little piece of metal I can use? How about that one right in your hand?
Sure.
I'm going to press that in with my metal. You can see how I am embedding that. I'm going to take this little outside corner, slide that guy right in there, and this is where I might get a little bit of that tape Matt mentioned, and we'll line those up and hold those in place perfectly until everything cures. But, so Matt, what Matt was talking about, I'm not necessarily ready to set tile on this. Do you have a minute I can complete this?
I have until Mark and Matt kick us off the stage.
So the next step, and this is really important, I'm gonna trowel back over the top of this metal.
So this kind of has something to do with coverage, doesn't it, Mark? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
It has coverage for two reasons. I'm giving that metal full coverage and full contact, and coverage for the tile piece that I'm setting there as well. So now you can see that I've fully embedded the leg of this profile under that tile right there. Now, we see a lot of people, they slide this metal in from the side. Have you ever seen that? Right? So they do it and they just slide in the metal. What happens is we don't have a full bond, full coverage of that metal encased in the adhesive. Matt, what are you going to show us there now?
I'm going to give you this long piece,
Yes.
and I'm going to give that to you because we're running out of time and I want to put a piece in on the floor.
Okay.
While you get set up for that, this is another way. And instead of clamping it down, we're going to use this. It kind of looks like a speed square, but what you'll notice with this tool is that it's got slots that are specifically designed to hold the profile. So if we're doing the inside of a niche, this will work great. I can make my adjustments. I can get a real fine, a real accurate cut on this, and it gives me the ability to move depending on the angle that I want. And so let's make a cut with this really quick. So we could put a 45 on each end, and maybe this is how you trim the inside of a niche. The safety aspect of this tool is it's giving you something up against your fence, and it is preventing this from twisting or kicking. And what you're noticing is that I'm going real slow. Now, yesterday we talked about diamond tools, and if you're cutting metal with this, you may have to dress your blade. So it's not going to perform. This blade is not designed for metal, and so it's going to, maybe the metal will kind of melt around some of those diamonds, and you may have to redress your tool to kind of bring it back to life and re-expose those diamonds. So Mark, really quick, he's got some thin set spread on the floor. You notice that he wiped down his substrate. He's getting the dust off the substrate. He's giving a thirsty substrate a drink. We've talked about all of this already throughout the show. You're pointing at the sticker, and I know what that means. Are we going to be able to get coverage if we leave the sticker on there? Nope. We got to try to get that sticker off of there.
We're going to worry about him later.
We'll do a different piece. How about
this
that?
piece right here.
So exact same concept as we just talked about for the knee wall. He spread his thin set.
That metal.
Spread his thin set. He's going to push down on it. That thin set is oozing up through those holes in the profile, and that's where it's really key to make sure that you have the right size profile to match the height of your tile. Then he's going to come back with his trowel and he's going to add thin set over top. Now, using the right size trowel, and we've already checked for coverage and all of those types of things, but what's the weakest point of a tile? The corners and the edges, right? So that's the place that we want to make sure we're getting 100% coverage. So we want to make sure when we're installing that profile that we get plenty of coverage under that metal. Mark's going to push down on it, shift it back left to right, and he's collapsing his ridges, and then he may have to do a final adjustment on that profile. So, Mark, I think that's, go ahead and pull it. I know you're dying to show everybody that you did a good job there.
Great coverage there.
Great coverage. And
Great
we got
coverage
great
here.
coverage on the profile as well. So when you're cutting metal profiles, make sure you are doing it a safe way. That is not the time to be in a hurry. Take care of your fingers, take care of your eyes, take care of your ears. Guys, I appreciate it. We're with the NTCA at 7914 directly behind you.
One more really quick thing. This thing we did with the profile, if you're familiar with the Certified Tile Installer exam from Ceramic Tile Education Foundation, the CTI at CTEF, they are back here doing a CTI test right now, and brand new to the CTI is installing these metal profiles. So we just showed you how their profiles will be evaluated. Thank you, everybody. Matt, give it up for my partner, Matt Welner.
Thank you.
Great job, Matt.